Mm, welcome. Interesting day, yeah? Word on the street is that we're heading into a bubble, ladies and gentlemen. Well, we're currently in a bubble. But tonight I'm going to talk about the biggest bluff to date and what it means for Bitcoin. Has it got anything to do with Bitcoin? Not at all. It's got anything to do with the US? A little bit. It's all to do with the Bank of Japan, ladies and gentlemen. And that's a little bit of a problem, given that dollar itself is starting to rise. Dollar yen is hitting Forex intervention levels. Yeah, but Tino, I'm not here for that, man. I just want to make money on Bitcoin. Is Bitcoin going to go up or down? Okay, if you want the simple version, Bitcoin's going to go up. It has been a pleasure speaking to you all this evening. This will be probably my fastest, shortest ever live, and I will tune into you all tomorrow. Mad love and respect. Hit the like button or watch the TV if you are new, and I'll speak to you tomorrow. I can't do that to you, man. I think that there is an underlying play happening. Now, I might be wrong with this, but given that a new minister has come into play with the Bank of Japan and the Japanese government overall, and the Japanese government haven't really been giving investors, should I say, the enthusiasm to want to pick up Japanese debt. Why? Well, not so long ago, the Bank of Japan were notorious, or should I say the government was buying up so many bonds, and it was kind of worrying. Investors are like, okay, cool, yeah, we get the Bank of Japan and the Japanese government were buying up their bonds. You know, that's usually a practice that normally happens, but at the excessive rate that they were buying at, investors started to get a little bit cautious, so they laid back on placing any bets on the Japanese bonds, which is why the Japanese yields are shooting up. What does it all mean for Bitcoin? Well, ladies and gentlemen, if we do get a repeat of history, then we're going to see the carry trade unwind. Now, before you say, this morning, Tina, you were saying that the market's bull run is not done yet. Well, it's not done, but there is going to be an event where we need to see a quick retrace. The problem that stock market has right now is big boys, analysts are all coming out saying that we haven't had a valid correction. But what if we're not going to need one? This one event could trigger a nice flash crash, which will send assets significantly higher. History shows you that when it did happen before, the stock market rallied so aggressively, even heavyweights on Wall Street came out saying, we hate V-shape reversals. They can't trade those environments. You see, hedge funds like to buy slowly. You know, the slow trend is the true trend kind of thing. But what I'm going to dive into right now is going to help you understand that if this event does happen, this will prove Bitcoin. It will prove Bitcoin as the haven, as the go-to. Because Bitcoin, other than the Bank of Japan carry trade unwind back in the 5th of August 2024, Bitcoin did exactly what the stock market did. What we're looking for is Bitcoin to not do what the stock market does when an event like the one that I'm going to be talking about may happen. Bitcoin needs to hold itself, because only then will Bitcoin be proof to Wall Street that it is the hedge against inflation, the store of value, and the best thing that anything ever happened to the marketplace. Anyway, I'm not going to kiss Bitcoin's ass too much, but you get the idea. Let's break it all down, ladies and gentlemen, and help you understand what I'm trying to say here. Here we go. So today has been a bit of a shocking day, all right? Our good old boy Donald Trump opened his mouth again and come out with some BS saying that he's going to halt Chinese imports. Do you understand? Bro, like, come on. Everything is made in China. This camera, made in China. This microphone, made in China. We're all made in China. Seriously, come on. All the apparatus that are used for women to give birth with are probably made in China. We all come from China, ladies and gentlemen. We are China. Trump is trying to halt Chinese imports. That's going to really hurt the Chinese, but yet he wants them to buy US soybeans. Make your mind up, my bro. Like, what are you doing? To top that off, ladies and gentlemen, we had some speakers today from the Federal Reserve suggesting that we may be going a little bit too fast with the rate cuts. Goes on to say that traders also passed remarks from the Federal Reserve speakers, with Governor Michael Barr calling for a cautious approach toward further rate cuts. Quite frankly, ladies and gentlemen, whatever anyone says in regards to the Federal Reserve, I don't think the market really cares. They really don't. Why? Well, the expectation of rate cuts is still there. 94.6%. They're still there with it, guys. So you can keep giving us your speeches and your, oh, you shouldn't really cut the rates. Oh, you know what? We kind of said in September that we didn't want to cut the rates, but you ended up cutting the rates. So why would we need to know that you had an idea that you didn't really want to? And that was from the FOMC minutes, okay? Now, let me get to the point of what I'm trying to say right now. Check this out. This is really important. And I think that we are getting, well, the market is kind of getting bluffed out, all right? Because ultimately, just before I continue, the importance of the Japanese yen is this. Against the US dollar, when we start talking about trade, the Japanese need the dollar to be devalued against it, all right? So in other words, dollar's value needs to be lower in comparison to the yen. And it helps them so much with trade. Like Donald Trump said, the dollar weakness is great for everyone, but it's not great for the US in principle, because then you have no purchasing power. Right now, you're losing purchasing power, even though dollar itself right now, let's quickly go and have a look. The dollar is currently trading at, where are we at? There we go, 99. Ladies and gentlemen, we are slowly but surely getting close towards appreciation on the dollar. This goes up to 100.01. You get yourself 0.1% purchasing power. And you can appreciate that the dollar does look like it's got some flavor on the weekly that it could actually return to. And maybe you get yourself some good purchasing power on the dollar. Maybe. But this story right here is very important. And I think that the players at the Bank of Japan, and of course, the newly elected Liberal Democrat Party leader and Prime Minister frontrunner, Sanae Takachi, is playing the bond market. I seriously think that there is an underlying play here. Let me explain. So here are the key aspects to it. Says here, Japan's Takashi says, don't want to trigger excessive yen decline. Because right now the yen is taking a nosedive. Go and have a look at it. Here we go. Yen futures, it's just obliterated to the downside, right? Go back into it. Stick with me on this one, guys, because I know when you go onto YouTube, all right, and you talk and you search for cryptocurrency creators and you're waiting for them to say, buy Bitcoin, buy Bitcoin. Let me tell you something. What I'm giving you is the reason as to why Bitcoin's going to go up or down. And it's nothing to do with on-chain. It's nothing to do with it. I mean, look, just to put it into perspective, we even got a dude right here saying that a calm before the storm. Bitcoin's volatility indicator signals a massive move. Well, what volatility indicator are you talking about? Well, the article goes on to say that Bitcoin is about to break out from a Bollinger Band, ladies and gentlemen. So here you go. Here are the Bollinger Bands. It's now tapped that volatility, suggesting that there is further volatility to the upside with Bitcoin. And yesterday or last night's live stream, where we were talking about the idea of Bitcoin's average daily range, given that it's around nearly 1 million pips per week, we can make the assumption that Bitcoin will be going to 152,000 over a month or over a period of a month. It could do that, okay? If Bitcoin maintains its trajectory. So that does sit in line with this Bollinger Band story. And that's all that it's based off. Just the Bollinger Band. That volatility is there. Okay, maybe there could be, given that BlackRock today has purchased 2,968 ETH. And of course, picked up a little bit of Bitcoin, given that it's been maneuvering Bitcoin. It's picked up a little bit of Bitcoin, and the ETF balance itself might have gone up just a very little bit. Hold on a second. I'm just doing this now just to keep you guys involved in this live stream, because I really want you to hear what I have to say about this Bank of Japan story. Currently at 802,197. And that's where we are with the ETF balance. That's where your Bitcoin is going, ladies and gentlemen. Okay? Now, let me break it back down to you. Check this out. Japan says here that we don't see immediate need to revise the Government Bank of Japan joint agreement. Okay? That's not what we're looking at. Says here, Japan's Takashi says, declines to comment when asked about the likelihood of near-term Bank of Japan rate hike. So let's explain. When the Bank of Japan starts to maneuver with its interest rates, that's a little bit of a problem. Why? Because it's the carry trade. Why? To borrow yen right now, it's really cheap. It's less than 0.5% on the interest rate. That means investors overseas can come over to Japan, take as much Japanese yen as they can, and then take that, convert it over to a necessary currency that they work with. So, for example, the dollar, and then put that dollar to work in risk on assets. Happy days. So they've borrowed money from the yen at a rate of 0.5% or less than, and they've taken that yen, sold it to dollars. Dollar, it then increases, and then dollar then gets put to work in various asset classes. Happy days. Well, when the Bank of Japan turn around and say, well, we need to increase our interest rate, the same participants that had borrowed at a rate of 0.5% are now scratching their heads thinking, no. They're increasing the interest rate. That means it's going to cost us more money to hold on to this risk that we've got since we borrowed a load of yen at the lower rate. Now they're going to increase it. So that means we need to do what? We need to get our dollars, and we need to get our dollars from any risk that we put on, sell it, then get our dollars, sell that back into yen so that we don't incur higher costs of actually borrowing that money, which effectively eats into any potential profit margins. This is why it's important we focus on what the Bank of Japan do, massively, because it's the only currency out there that you can borrow money cheap. Today, when she was asked about the interest rates, she didn't say a single word. Now, this is where we spit game. Check this out. In front of you is the average cash earnings for the yen, okay, or for workers in Japan. Now, the Japanese have a problem with inflation. And when inflation starts to kick in, what do? You increase the interest rates. What's Jay Powell been doing? Increase the interest rates, increase it, because we need to control inflation. But if the average cash earnings or wages are going up, that's going to be putting people to work more, to spend more, and do more with their cash. That naturally then forces manufacturers, companies, and all of that stuff to increase the cost of their goods. Inflation continues to go up. People keep spending their money. You've got yourself a problem. You see, the Bank of Japan are trying to get into a position of normalization with the economy, and that's not where they are. Check this out. In front of you is the chart of underlying inflation. And we can see here, this blue line, very important, shows that underlying inflation is effectively going up. Okay? So that's another factor. Your wages are going up. Your inflation underlying is going up. Okay? Ladies and gentlemen, Japan have got to do something, don't they? This is the bigger picture. This tells you why I think they're bluffing and investors in Japan are going to call it out. In front of you is the 10-year, 2-year government bond yield spread. What you've got going off down here is an aggressive movement in the 10-year and the 2-year. Although it's not inverted, it shows you that the 10-year earns you more money if you do invest in the 10-year bond. The 2-year shows you that you earn less in the 2-year bond, because that's usually what happens. You invest for a longer period of time, you earn more money. But the problem is, the yields are moving up too fast. What is it telling you? It's telling you that investors do not trust the Bank of Japan. You want to see the proof of that? Come look at the bond market. Let's go. In front of you, you have the 10-year yield bond. What on earth is going on there? Let me just get rid of this. What on earth is going on there? 1.698%. They clearly do not want to buy Japanese debt because they don't trust the way they're doing things. Bank of Japan, the Takashi has just come out with a new stimulus package. What the? You've got a problem and you're just going to pile money into it? Not to say this, but look, dollar yen, where is it? Dollar yen, look at that. Dollar yen is heading into Forex intervention zone, right? The 10-year bond itself on the Japanese yen, wait a sec, look at it. It's not doing great. Investors aren't getting involved in the Japanese yen bond. They don't trust it. So when they're asked about the idea of interest rate hikes and they fail to comment on it, ladies and gentlemen, my belief is this, that the Bank of Japan are going to increase the interest rates because when it comes to changing policy, well, that's the one of two things they can do. They can either increase the interest rate or change their policy. Well, they technically have changed their policy because they're now plowing more money into the marketplace, which is great for Japanese equities. But the problem is it's no good because investors are not even buying the cheapest thing or the risk-free thing, or not so much risk-free, but the lowest risk asset class, which is a bond. And that is evident right here. So what I'm trying to say to you, ladies and gentlemen, that moving forward, there could be an announcement that the Bank of Japan do increase their interest rates. They act very slow, and they could leave it to get to a point where it becomes really, really bad, where there will be a freak meeting that says, we're going to increase the interest rates right now. We've pushed it too far. Do you understand what that will do? That will then lead to the flash crash across the board. That would then lead to an unwind in the carry. And then, of course, assets across the board will come down because they will be forced to get rid of those dollars that they previously borrowed on the back of the yen and convert it back into the yen. That would then succeed the Japanese to bring down the yields because investors will be going into the bonds because the Bank of Japan have acted. This is really important. It's nothing that's going to happen overnight, which is why we need to monitor what's going on in the meetings with regards to the Bank of Japan. But as it stands right now, the stock market is loving life. It says here that the only way that the stock market, check this out, says here, courtesy of Keith Larner, says this: while some areas of the market appear overheated, overall sentiment does not reflect the excessive optimism often seen at market peaks. Okay, cool. Then he says, still, the extended stretch without a meaningful pullback leaves the market more sensitive to negative surprises. So what does that mean? It simply means that as it stands, the gravy train is working really well. There is only one aspect to it all, other than Donald Trump spitting BS about trying to stop Chinese imports. He's bluffing as well, because I don't think he's going to do that. I mean, we still don't know where we are with the tariffs, but fundamentally, the only event that I think that would lead the stock market to pull back based off news would be the Bank of Japan increasing their interest rates. In other words, the markets are going to continue to rally to the upside, and they will continue only on the idea that as long as Bank of Japan do not increase their interest rates. But the fact is that the data is showing that the Bank of Japan have to increase their interest rates because they're heading into territories that are not sustainable for them, and it's going to hurt them significantly if they don't do anything about it. Because quite frankly, if foreign Japanese investors don't get involved in Japanese bonds, where are they going to go? They're going to go and plow themselves into other asset classes like Euro bonds or US bonds. But they won't do that because they're going to be then saying to themselves, hold on a second, you're going to increase the interest rates. You have to increase the interest rates. So then that means if we then go into the Japanese bonds when you increase the interest rates, what are we going to get? We're going to get a higher rate of return. That, for me, ladies and gentlemen, is realistically the only event that could really lead the market for a nice pullback that we all want. But with that being said, as long as the earnings in tech keep on pulling through, ladies and gentlemen, the market is still being primed to go higher. Any pullback that you get is being equally met with a return back up. Let me show you. Today, NASDAQ, the beautiful NASDAQ. Now, this was a bit of a tricky one today, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just going to break it down for you. I said to the guys in the Platinum membership, I said to them all that if NASDAQ does this thing, which is to pull back, then you can anticipate that at the 4-hour candlestick at 7 p.m. UK time, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard, will initiate a reversal or a stopping volume candle. Now, if you look on the 1-hour time frame, you can see that we've got a stopping volume candle right here. That was at 6 o'clock that it finalized or started at, right? Then the 7 p.m. candlestick opened. That's when I took my trade today. I was in the Discord and I was talking with everyone, and I said to them all, where was it in our Discord? Hold on a second. I was giving out some price movements. I was talking about the 25272 and talking about the NASDAQ breaking the VWAP, but I was going into it and I started to dive into the story. Let me just pull it up for you right now because I just want to show you what I'm talking about. Here we go. So it says here, watch out for that. I would ideally want to see that green, because the gentleman said that there was a green vector candle on the NASDAQ, and this was at the start of the new 4-hour candle, which is where I looked for the stopping volume candle to come into play on the 4-hour. But if you look at the 4-hour time frame, the previous 4-hour, you can see that there was a big red vector candle. Okay, look at that. A big red vector candle, and they started to recover back up. And I had said here that I ideally want to see that get recovered, which is the green vector candle on the 5-minute time frame, before the start of the 4-hour candle. And then when the 4-hour starts, they wick the lows and then try to reverse to set the day's low. And that's what they did. They came back into that range and they set the low. That was the low being set, but they come back into it, and that's where I made my trade. So here is where I actually took my trades. I first opened options. As you can see right here, I had my options price down here around the 22 region, and we had entered inside of here, and I opened 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 positions in my options and favored higher prices on the NASDAQ. This is the screenshot of it, but I'll just show you right here where we are with it. And the day, let me just do this just to show it's not no BS, but here we go. And we've got the 24 hours. So these are my trades that I made today. They were all calls. We cleared 4,599 English pounds on those options. We entered in at average between 27 and 32 as a strike price, and we sold out at 67, 48, 48. And I did leave some on the table in the sense that I could have earned more, but I wasn't going to tolerate that because we were getting close towards the last half an hour of the market, which is why I closed off around 8:30. But then what I did do was I then traded on my personal account and copied exactly the same trade onto my Ninja Trader, and both traded ES and NASDAQ on the futures, and we cleared $2,461, which is around 1,800 English pounds, to set the day off for about £6,500 sterling gain for the day. But I took this trade simply off the recovery of the red vector candle at the start of the new 4-hour, and you can see there was a stopping volume candle on the 1-hour time frame, and they made that reversal movement back up. When I tell you that the story of the bids and the offers works so well on the NASDAQ because they bid it, they buy it, they buy it, they buy it, then they stop, set the trap, recovery of the vector, back up again. That's all I do. I don't tend to trade the start of the New York session. It's too chaotic on the order flow, but I can. But today, when I started seeing the vectors coming into play, I said to myself, they are going to come back into those ranges. I need to wait for them to set the low and then try and make the reversal. This violet vector candle gave me the clue, and then the stopping volume candle came into play, and I was like, right, you know what? They're going to try and make a reversal. Let me get myself exposed. And then I entered at 7 p.m. and then rode it for an hour and a half. Happy days. Didn't quite get the full big move to the upside, but I made enough to satisfy the idea and logic of the stopping volume candle on the 1-hour, and then looking for the reversal of the red vector candle on the 4-hour time frame. Just look at where NASDAQ is right now. You're telling me that's bubble behavior? Nah, man. They have the expectation that everything's going to continue higher. Now let's go over to Bitcoin. Bitcoin did all right. Very tricky day with Bitcoin, but Bitcoin has just printed a stopping volume candle on the 4-hour time frame. The same way the stopping volume candle works on the NASDAQ is the same way it works on Bitcoin. However, Bitcoin is a little bit different when it comes to contracts. You're trading leverage. Just look at the order flow. What did we see happen? A lot of players got involved. 42.73 million at 120,000. Going further, another 30 million at 121,000. You got another, where is it? Another 30 million here at 121,222. I mean, they're really buying the Bitcoin. 41 million at 119,780. I mean, do the math, ladies and gentlemen. What they're doing. We pay attention to when it drops because we know they're buying it. The offers are sort of coming into play. 42 million to be sold at 121,888. Without Donald Trump saying his BS today about China, right? Bitcoin could have easily cleared more movement to the upside today, but they used it to bid price. They shook the market. Because technically, Donald Trump can say whatever he wants, and if the market is going to react, it's going to react, all right? Already funding rates are suggesting that there are a lot of people playing longs. Let's just go into the order flow again to understand where that logic sits. You can see here, look, they've come back down. A bag of open interest has come into play in that range, 716 million. That wasn't there before. Now it has appeared. So we can assume that this could be an area of support on Bitcoin. And go back to the idea of Mr. Bollinger Band, assuming that Bitcoin is going to continue higher. Well, we go to the weekly time frame. You can see that Bitcoin is doing perfectly fine. It's doing perfectly fine. Yes, we do have a green vector candle. All right. And on bid side on Bitcoin, what you need to do is just take the midpoint of the vector, which currently takes you at around probably inside of this range right here. Okay, we'll just take the midpoint right there, just for there or thereabouts. All right. You could get yourself a nice plays at 117,000 if it were to go to that point. But what I'm trying to say to you is any bad news that hits the marketplace, then the market will react. And if this Bank of Japan story comes into play, that's when Bitcoin really needs to show its worth, because the accumulation is on unfathomable levels, 802,000. This is going up as Bitcoin is going up, suggesting that investors are just running with it. But realistically, guys, you're going into an easing cycle. Of course, the markets are going to go up. Bitcoin has done very well relative to the dollar itself. Very well. Given that dollar has shot up today and Bitcoin has struggled a little bit, but it's retained itself. What does that show you? The expectation of Bitcoin's price to the upside is still there. All right? I ain't bullish. I'm not bearish. I'm trading movement. Okay? But behind that movement is sentiment. And the sentiment is suggesting that we are not ready for the crash. We're not ready for it. The only event that could lead to it is the Bank of Japan not playing ball and trying to bluff their investors, or commercial and domestic investors, with regards to interest rate hikes. Equally, if Donald Trump were to really say something that could rock the market, I mean, he did say something, China imports, the market corrected, but then it came straight back up. They priced it in. The only thing that's going to be a problem for the market is if the earnings do not come through. But one thing I will say is credit is not a problem. And if credit's not a problem, it means money is being used and financial conditions are actually fine. Does that make sense? I hope it bloody does. I really do. Any questions, Sinbad, you know? I look like a young Mr. T. Any questions, ladies and gentlemen, before we kill the live? Why does no one talk about ETH? I'll tell you why no one talks about ETH. Because they're taking the Ethereum. That's what they're doing. You know, they're taking the sweet. Yeah, it's just taking forever. I mean, Bitcoin dominance, where you at? All right, it's a nice little spike to the upside right there. There's potential. It's going to keep going up. I believe it's going to go to around 60.39. I think it's going to go to 65. All right, it's just on its way towards it. Some people begging to differ with it, but you know, you got to defend your bag. Trust me, I do try and defend my bag. I hold XRP, and you can see how pretty cheesed off I am about this XRP formation that it's currently doing right now, where it's going nowhere. This is an XRP ETF coming into play. Look at that. It's doing fantastic. It went like, look at the events that we have had. Right? Big events that have happened. We've had FOMC. We've had all sorts, all right? Wars, and XRP moves up and down 50 cents through all those events. Bitcoin has cleared significant levels, all right? It's dropped and it's moved up. But XRP, all right? Look at it. Doesn't even react to anything. It's just an absolute shocking thing. But you know, when it moves, I'm always going to kiss its ass. Well, I told you. And let's just quickly break down couple of my trades. So here I am with my Circle trade. It's doing all right. Okay, Circle has held out really well. It's not really doing much. It's consolidating sideways. But yeah, we caught a cool entry at $131. Currently now trading at a 150 range itself. The bullish trade itself hasn't really done too well. It's currently negative $160 from yesterday when it was up 190. But bullish seems to be holding out. But I do have an expectation that Circle is going to continue high. You're going to hear about more partnerships because that's what's going on right now. But my logic is that I do anticipate Circle to still climb up. And as long as crypto keeps coming up, and then as long as the stock market keeps moving up, and as long as we're still on the path of interest rate cuts, then Circle is naturally going to keep on marking higher, ladies and gentlemen. But yeah, that's this is my position on BTCC. So get yourself involved, and you can trade tokenized stocks with BTCC. There are a number of other cryptocurrency based stocks inside of this. So you've got your Maras, your Riots, and what have you, and you can trade those bad boys on that platform. So if you do sign up, the link is at the top of the description. Pinned to the top of the chat, and you get a bonus when you do sign up with up to 10% on your account. All right. Great for anyone in the US and what have you. But yeah, you can trade crypto, you can trade Forex, you can trade the indices, you can trade gold and silver on BTCC. It's a great hedging platform, in my opinion. Speaking of which, silver. Look at this guy. I mean, that's wonderful, isn't it? It's spiking up and still going up. And gold itself took a little bit of a snap. But ladies and gentlemen, where do you think this is going? Where do you think this is going? If the story between Israel and Hamas does not, with the Gaza story, if that doesn't fall complete, even that we're in phase 1 of the peace talks, okay, if it doesn't fully complete, what do you think gold's getting ready to do? It's getting ready to rip even further to the upside. And even though Fed speakers have said that they don't think that interest rates should be cut, doesn't matter what these speakers say. Ultimately, the trajectory is they're going to cut the rates because that's what they're betting for. So keep an eye out on that bad boy, ladies and gentlemen. Quickly going over into CoinMarketCap to review everything. Everything pretty much is exactly the same. 44 on the altcoin season. Not nice. I mean, I thought Bitcoin maxis and dudes in Bitcoin were really like, you can't say that about Bitcoin. But altcoiners, you guys are rough. You can't say nothing about altcoins. Speaking of which, let's just go over to my altcoins boss list. Then let's have a look at some altcoins that are doing really well. Alice is up 34%. What has happened to Alice? Can anyone shed any light on this? That is a nice point. That's the problem with altcoins, man. They give you this burp and then it just pulls straight back. That's the problem with it. ZEC. Oh, look at that. ZZ Cash. Wonderful flavor right there, ladies and gentlemen. Absolutely awesome. There you go. Nice movement there on SLP. Carver, not really doing too much. Zen, still doing some nice movement, and everything else is just negative. Who's the worst performer? AMP. I mean, that looks like a toy. It's been drawn on there. Look at this, man. Wow. I mean, Loop ring, like, flipping out. Look, he's just getting obliterated. Ava should be doing that. CTSI, it's not really doing great. I mean, given Jasmine Coin would keep an eye on Jasmine Coin, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, with the Japanese yen and what have you, I believe that's going to start marking up when the yen when they do actually increase their interest rates. I think that's going to start working itself back up again. But going over into the totals chart itself to have a look. There you've got, look, 1.13 trillion on the altcoin market. They've come into the 50 EMA and they seem to be losing it. And I do believe that most altcoins are probably going to start coming back down. I think that's where the dominance is going to come into play. We're going to probably see some altcoins get really cheap. And it's going to come back down to around the 1.1 region. And that's where we could anticipate a little bit of a bounce on altcoins. But just take that into consideration because it is showing negative order flow as such. That means they are all progressively selling and getting rid of their altcoins. So just take that into consideration. You might get yourself a little bit more discount on the altcoins. You might not like to hear that, but you marry up the idea of altcoin season, going up to Bitcoin season. Yeah, God forbid I say that Bitcoin goes up against the altcoins and people don't like it. But you know what? This game is about truths. If you don't like it, then you shouldn't really be involved in this game, Oh, Bitcoin 151,000. How quick was that, ladies and gentlemen? Nah, this is just Bitcoin, Ethereum with the NASDAQ. All right. Stopping volume candle right there. Not bad, huh? An interesting index right there. Anyways, other than that, any other questions? Did Ethereum insult you or something today, Tino? Nah, I didn't do anything like that. I've got quantum-based stocks right here. This one's for you guys. Just have a look at these. These are all quantum-based stocks. QBTS. I'm so proud of that. Told you guys about quantum computing. I know some of you have made a flipping stack on this bad boy. Stack. RGTI. Rigetti Computing. I mean, this is Plantiers doing all right. QMCO. It's a good little stock. I mean, look at that. It's just flipping flavor. Absolute. I just love quantum-based stocks. It's great. Anyways, do I drink whiskey? Don't drink. I'll have a little bit, but nothing to get all excited about. Couple of quid on a few shots. I'm shit-faced. That's the truth. Tino, no, use different word instead of... Okay. Market analysis for H-bar. What is this? Engage with your audience. Okay, cool. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, I hope that makes sense to you. All right. Now, with that being said, have yourselves a wonderful evening. We're going into Friday tomorrow. We know what Fridays are about. Probably the worst day to trade, in my opinion. It can be a tricky time to trade, but no trading for me tomorrow. That's a fact. But other than that, I hope it makes sense. Just remember, credit is still good. All right. And the market's not struggling, regardless of what they say. We haven't had no problems with credit. So that means they're just going to keep consuming it. Easing cycle. They're cutting rates. Right? Mad love and respect. Watch the TV. You know what I'm saying.